Hello, and welcome to Faith and Federalism, where I take ideas governmentally and analyze them theologically. Today, I just have a few things to go over. I'll try to be as quick as possible, but there was a lot of information that kind of broke, so I'm going to break it up between Tuesday and Thursday's podcasts. So I wanted to go over Melania breaking her silence and having her first interview in 2 years. The New York mayor was indicted. Joe Biden admitted that he delegated powers to Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris is going to skip the historic Al Smith dinner. And I wanted to talk to you about two movies that I saw, the 1916 Project and Vindicating Trump. So let's just get started. So Melania breaks her silence. This is her first interview in 2 years, and she had a sit-down interview with Ainsley Earhardt. She said that nothing prepared her more to be first lady than being in the fashion industry because it's glamorous, but it's also very tough because everyone judges you and looks at you a certain way, and it can be a mean world. So she said nothing prepared her more for the world of being a first lady than being a fashion model. When she arrived to New York City, she went directly from the airport to the agency, and she came with 2 suitcases and her portfolio. She said that becoming a citizen made her very proud. It was a proud moment because she had worked hard for 10 years to be able to become a citizen. She described her husband, Donald Trump, as being very aware of what's going on in the country, that back when she first met him, he was very into politics, so she knew that he would be in politics someday. She became a mother, and her career took a back seat to that because she had a different purpose in motherhood, so it wasn't hard for her to take a step back from her career. She said it's very important to show our children that we are also working and to give them an example of what life is, to show them that we have ideas and that ideas come to life. And she describes Donald Trump as a caring person and that he especially cares for this country. When they're not busy, they like to have a quiet dinner with friends. And she says that the advice she has for blended families, because Donald Trump had several children before marrying her, is that basically everyone has their own behavior and everyone is in control of themselves. She wrote a book a while back, and this is because she wanted to tell her story because she believed it was time to tell the truth. There's a lot of misinformation and falsehoods that are written about her, so she wanted to set the record straight. And when asked if she supported Donald Trump running again, she said she fully supports him and knows that he wants to make America great again. She didn't speak at the RNC because she just didn't feel like it was right at the time. So instead, she wrote a letter to America after the assassination and before the RNC. She said that the raid of Mar-a-Lago made her very angry because it was an invasion of privacy, and she was really surprised at how everything was done. When asked about the assassination attempt, she said that both of them were miracles because of the way he was saved. She says she definitely thinks something was watching over him and that the country really needs him, and that the media is only fueling a toxic atmosphere and causing people to want to do violent things against her husband. And she wishes that people knew Donald Trump is a family man that loves his family in this country, that he just wants to make the country better and more prosperous. And the reason why they want to do it again is because they want to, of course, make America great again, make the country safe and prosperous again, and wants the American dream to be achievable again. When it comes to the New York mayor, so Mayor Adams was indicted on 5 federal charges related to bribery, wire fraud, conspiracy, and soliciting campaign contributions from foreign nationals. The allegations go back to 2014 when he was the Brooklyn borough president. He sought and accepted improper valuable benefits such as international travel from wealthy foreign business people, including one Turkish government official seeking to gain influence over him. He received luxury travel from a Turkish official in exchange for pressuring the New York City Fire Department to open a Turkish consular building without a fire inspection, and he had his first court appearance last Friday. He said that he wasn't surprised by the charges, but encouraged the public to wait to hear their defense before making any judgments, and he said that he's not changing his day-to-day responsibilities in light of the indictment. Prominent figures, though, have called for his resignation, including Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and Governor Hochul could remove him by law, but multiple sources said that she's not considering it. When it comes to Joe Biden, so he had an interview on The View last week where he said he delegated his powers to Kamala. He said there wasn't a single thing that he did that she couldn't do, so he delegated the responsibility on everything from foreign to domestic policy. To me, this means that she's been doing most of the work for the past 4 years and that she's been responsible for all of the decisions made. So, with that said, it's now out to the country that we can see how she would run America when it comes to foreign and domestic policy. And is that necessarily something that we want for this country? Is she truly a change candidate, or is she just an extension of the Biden presidency, and were her hands really tied as VP as she claims? For Biden to come out and say that all of the responsibilities were delegated to her, I think that shows that, one, he hasn't been running the country for the past 4 years. She has. And so, like I said, we definitely have a window to see how she's been running the country. And so we can use that to measure against how she would be running the country now if she were to be elected president. And I don't think that necessarily says good things about her. Also, Kamala is to skip the historic Al Smith dinner. So it's a Catholic charity dinner that both candidates are invited to, and it's usually has light roast between the two candidates, but instead she decided to go to a battleground state on October 17th. This doesn't really surprise me because she loves to skip out on candid moments, and I think that it would show her to be somebody different if she were to be filmed in this type of environment. But she did tell the event organizers that she hopes to attend the dinner in later years as president, which I'm like, okay. And she's the first candidate to skip the dinner since the 1980s. So I also think that that says something about her because it is a Catholic charity dinner. So is it saying that she doesn't care about Catholics? Is it saying that she just wants to skip out on, lighthearted bantering? Like, what is it really saying about her that she's skipping this dinner? So I went to go see the 1916 Project over the weekend, and it basically exposes the origins and consequences of America's progressive culture shift. It discusses the founder of Planned Parenthood, Margaret Sanger, and her plans for the Black race and those who are disabled. And Planned Parenthood can actually be traced back to the KKK and Nazis who used her work as a way to further their agendas. A lot of people don't know this, but Margaret Sanger was a racist and a eugenicist who wanted to eliminate the Black race. And so the KKK and Nazis really clung to this because they were trying to get rid of the Black race and the Jews. And so they were like, oh, you have this idea through eugenics. Like, let's also use this idea. She created the American Birth Control League and performed abortions herself because she couldn't find any doctors to get behind her. And she was later arrested and served time. And then she opened Planned Parenthood. And she would reach out to Black preachers to help calm the rhetoric behind the clinics she was opening in the South. So a lot of Black ministers were actually used by her to further the agenda of abortion on Black women because she made it seem like this wonderful idea of reproductive choice. But she was going into the Black churches because she wanted to eliminate the Black race, while Black preachers were speaking out on it as a way for women to be able to choose their own legacy or choose their own way and have a choice over their own bodies. She said that she believed the greatest sin was to bring children in the world that quote unquote wouldn't have a chance at life. And like I said, she sought to eliminate the Black race through what she called the Negro Project. And something that's really frightening is that Hitler was studying her work abroad when he was rising to power and putting Jews in concentration camps. So a lot of people don't know this about Margaret Sanger, but like I said, she was the founder of Planned Parenthood, and we know Planned Parenthood to be one of the largest abortion clinics in the world. And it's also one of the largest killers of Black people in the world because they kill the most Black babies. I mean, like I said, in a former podcast, that more Black babies in New York were born or were killed than born in 2020. Its whole purpose was to eliminate the Black race and those who were disabled and those who were products of prisoners and things of that sort. People who might have been poor or just didn't live this nice, white, luxurious life that Margaret Sanger thought everybody should live. And so in saying that, a lot of people don't realize that they're standing for one of the most racist projects in human history, both in America and abroad. But what I would like to say is once you find this information out, because actually what happened was the left turned on itself and it came out with a project, or came out with an article basically saying that they found out that Margaret Sanger was racist and that she had these plans for the Negro race. And so they actually took off Margaret Sanger Square and they took off the name from the building because they celebrated her so highly and they have awards in her name and things like that. So basically they just took off and rewrote history and made it seem like it was all okay, but it's really not, because her project is still living on. So if you know these things, which shouldn't be hard to find out because the liberal media reported on it. If you know these things, then I would just say that you're a racist if you support abortion, and you're not a Christian if you support abortion either, but that's a discussion for a different day. But if you do know about these things and you still decide that abortion is good for women or that it's my body, my choice, then I would just say that you're a racist. Vindicating Trump. So Vindicating Trump was basically a documentary showing that Trump was rising to power as a billionaire and that he had the power of Caesar but never used it. The question is, how could someone be so loved but so hated at the same time? And it showed that we haven't had such a divisive figure since Lincoln. Lincoln, of course, was the president who freed the slaves, and he was very divisive because the slave owners wanted to keep their slaves while abolitionists fought for the end of slavery. Trump is trying to save America, and there's communists and people like that in our country who want to ruin America. And running his whole campaign is based on making America great again. But Trump's time in office has proved the tyranny of its enemies on the left who try to do anything to defeat him. And the point is to show that the left is the real Caesar and that they're creating lawlessness at the highest levels of government. And they despise him because he has the power to defeat them and the will to stop them. A lot of people are bought. If you've ever heard of the deep state, they're bought out and they're sellouts. And so they are called the deep state because they have kind of a allegiance to something other than America. They have an allegiance to either they're going to be blackmailed, so they have to keep their ties to the deep state, or there's other things that they're involved with that they can't necessarily go for America because they'll be outed in some way. And Trump knows all these things because he used to be just a celebrity that everybody loved. And now he also has the highest clearance because he was president, so he could find everything out. And so now that they know this, they hate him so much. The media has made him out to be somebody that he's not. And that's all through Project Mockingbird. And so in 2020, while we were at home and they thought it was a great idea for us to be at home, a lot of us did research on Project Mockingbird and found out that the media is just basically a parrot that lies to us. And also we found out about the child sex trafficking and all of that stuff that Donald Trump also found out about, to an extent, not at the highest clearance that he found out about it, but he has all of this knowledge that they are afraid of, that they're obviously not going to talk about and want to keep under wraps. But now that he knows it, they hate him. And they also knew him in the past and never thought for 1 second that he would run as a Republican. And so they're also very weary of that, because I guess they thought that he would be on their side because a lot of celebrities identify as liberals. And so I guess they thought that he would be on their side, but he is definitely not. And so he really cares about this country and wanting to save it, while the deep state does not really care about this country and has other ideas for our country. And so since he's trying to stop them, they really just don't like him. But it was an awesome movie. Both the 1916 Project and Vindicating Trump were really good for different reasons. I think that people should watch the 1916 Project so they can actually get information on what abortion really means and what it really is about, like how it started, what its purpose was for, who the people that Margaret Sanger worked for and worked with, and how the ideas of abortion led to a lot of what Hitler believed in for killing the Jews and other disabled people abroad. For her plan to go across the ocean is insane to me, but to have Hitler studying her work of eugenics is like mind-boggling to me, but there was a lot of mind-boggling things in that movie, and I could sit here and talk forever about it, but I think it's important for people to watch that so that they can learn more about abortion, and maybe they would change their mind about abortion. But like I said, I've had a lot of conversations with people about the fact that Margaret Sanger was a racist and believed in eugenics, and they just say, well, she's not around anymore, or that's not what it's about anymore. Like, yes, it is. Like, just because she's not around anymore, ideas live out people. They outlive people. And so her legacy was Planned Parenthood, and it's still around today. So as long as Planned Parenthood is around, then her legacy is being lived out, and her ideas and everything are being lived out. And so I don't necessarily agree with that. And I do think you are a racist, like I said, if you believe in abortion after learning all of that. And Vindicating Trump, I think it shows Trump to be more of a human than we know him to be. I feel like a lot of the times the media just portrays him as this certain person, and we don't really get to see who the real Donald Trump is. So it's nice to have Lara Trump was in the movie, and his lawyer Alina Habba was in the movie, and it was created by Dinesh D'Souza, and he had sit down interviews with Donald Trump as well. And I think that it really shows who he is as a person, and it makes him a more likable person, and it just shows him to be a person in general. And so I also recommend watching that movie. So how do we tie all this back to the gospel? Abortion, I'm always going to talk about abortion. I'm very passionate about that, because if we don't have the right to life, then we don't have any other rights. God made us in our mother's wombs, and he knows us, and he knew us before we were even born, and he had plans for our lives. And so what if he sent the person to cure cancer or Alzheimer's or any of these diseases that plague us every day, and we killed that person in the womb? So we're definitely responsible for the actions of abortion, and it's not going to stop unless we stop abortion. There are many people who think that abortion is a woman's choice, but it's not, because it's not their body. And also it's a life, and so all life is treasured by God, and he doesn't want to see any of his children perish. When it comes to just politics in general, because all of this was very political, it's okay for Christians to be involved in politics, and I definitely think that Christians should be involved in politics, because there's about 25 million Christians who aren't registered to vote. And of the Christians who are registered to vote, I believe 15 million don't vote. I may have those numbers backward, but for that to be a statistic, like, if we really used our right to vote as Christians, I think that we could solve so many problems, especially if we voted the way that we should and voted down ballot. I think that we would solve so many problems. Now, there are people that call themselves progressive Christians, which if you put anything in front of Christian, then I don't believe that you're actually a Christian, because it's just Jesus. It's just the gospel. It's not the social justice gospel. It's not the prosperity gospel. It's the gospel. It's not Catholicism, Mormonism. It's Christianity. It's not I'm this type of Christian. It's just that you're a Christian. We're all part of the family of Christ. And so we're all part of the church. And so I don't think, and my pastor always says that you can't vote for the principles of the Democratic Party and call yourself a Christian. I totally agree. And I will go further to say that if you're a Democrat, you're not a Christian. So if we all voted Republican and we all voted conservatively and held those values dear that Christians hold dear, then we would change America, and America would just be this prosperous country, and babies wouldn't be getting killed left and right every single day. And we would just have a good country. We wouldn't be at this point where we're one election away from losing our country almost every single year. But this every 4 years. But at this rate, we are really one election away from losing our country. If we have Kamala Harris as president and Tim Walz as vice president, we're definitely going to lose our country to communism. So that's all that I have to say. If you would subscribe and you would share with your friends, I would absolutely love that. I would also love it if you would give me a rating wherever you listen to your podcasts. And I would also love it if you would follow me on Instagram at Faith and Federalism, YouTube at Faith and Federalism, and Twitter at Faith and Fed. And remember, when it comes to discussing politics, faith comes first. I'll see you in my next episode.